content. But Ira and Adey, it would be great if you guys could kick off with introductions of who you are, and what you do and what makes you happy. Who wants to start?
Ira, you want to?
I'll go then.
I'll go first.
Go on, then.
I'll go first.
Okay.
Yeah. So my name's Adey. Yeah. So I'm. My background is I'm originally a dancer, actually, a contemporary dancer. That's kind of where I started my career, and with Ira as well. We were both at dance school together, and yeah, I've been through maybe a few different kind of career, kind of different ways since the dancing, and currently I'm kind of a photographer and director in the kind of theatre and now film world, and yeah. I'm trying to think, like, it's one of those things. It's like, what do I say in such a short time? I'm based in Denmark, in a very grey Copenhagen at the moment, and yeah, things that make me happy. I love that question. I was like, what makes me happy? It's like a really interesting one, right? It's like, maybe many things make me happy, but then I was like, what do I search for what makes me happy? And I was thinking, maybe, like, I live close to the beach here, and I go for walks to the beach sometimes by myself, and the calmness of it maybe makes me happy. And I was like these little things in life make me happy. Oh, dogs also make me happy.
Sorry. I'll put it on mute if they carry on.
Yeah, it's all right. And yeah, like socializing. I think that, like, real interactions with people, I think it's something we're all kind of yearning for in some way at the moment. But, like, you know, I think interactions with people can make you really happy and make me really happy. So yeah, actually spending time by myself sometimes is what I need to kind of feel kind of like happiness, kind of inner kind of maybe peace and happiness. And then, like, socializing with others and those kind of interactions, and like, you know, I met a couple of friends last night, and it's like, doesn't happen that often, but just like really being able to laugh out loud.
Yeah.
Just that, you know, and it's such a short space of time, maybe the laughter, that kind of extreme laughter, you feel so happy in that moment, and you know, and then it's gone. But yeah,
definitely feeding off other people's laughter is something that, you know, I miss a lot, especially not being able to meet up with people. But I mean, now we are, luckily. But yeah, thank you, Adey. Ira,
yeah,
why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I, like Adey said, that I also trained at a place called Northern School Contemporary Dance, and that's where me and Adey met and trained as a dancer for 5 years, and then moved into, again, kind of evolving, and moved into much more acting and theatre-based work, but still quite physical. So kind of moved from being a contemporary dancer into more physical theatre, into theatre, and also bits of TV and film as well, and combining the kind of keep pushing the boundaries and keep pushing myself, in terms of, yeah, like kind of the journey of improving and refining my acting, as well as keeping my movement skills, keep on growing that, but through playing characters, through meaning, and movement, rather than, right, I'm going to do a beautiful dance and now I'm going to act. It's like how, like, throughout my career, I've been kind of weaving them together, because I think they're very interconnected, and there's a way of really, and I think that's my strength as well. So yeah, and then now moving on to doing projects with Adey and doing, you know, our own work and my own expression, and I've done lots of work for other people, but it does get very like lots of people know, like whatever work you do, when you're working for other people, it's great for a period of time, but after you go over a project, over another project, after another project, you're giving your whole self, and you're giving so much of your creativity, and you're almost giving it over, and then the director or the kind of as they call them, creatives, which I find really difficult, because obviously everyone's a creative who's doing the project. But the creatives have final say on where the narrative, the show goes, or the project goes, and that it can get to a point where actually you want to have your own voice and see it through. And that, by doing the project that we've been doing, has been really empowering and really rewarding in that sense. So that's been great. In terms of what I like, happiness, again, I find this interesting, because for me, I go, what is happiness? What is the true sense of the word of happiness? Because I think it's amalgamation of lots of things. And I think that you can be content, and you can be peaceful, and you can be inspired, and they can overlap. So like there's some things where I'm proud and got content and proud of something that potentially, like something that's I feel like I've built. If, for instance, like either my house, or I'm proud of my child, and my child brings me happiness in moments, but not all the time. Definitely not all the time. But then but also like friends can bring me happiness in moments where, like again, like what Adey was saying, like social situations, going out dancing, which I would definitely do once or twice a month. I'd go out and have a full-on dance somewhere where it wasn't part of my career. It's just me dancing in a bar, in a club, and letting go and living in the moment. And that's pure happiness for me. And so the same with being in the studio, where I can be creative with people who are like-minded and creative, and those moments where you are really present in the moment. That's also a type of happiness for me. It's like a creative happiness. But I could go on and on and on. But yeah, I feel like it's just an interesting question. And I think it's really good, because actually it raises loads of, the question raises loads of other questions within it. And it's not a straightforward answer if you're being really true to it. I feel it's kind of like, okay, it's really nuanced.
Yeah, it's definitely something that when you share what makes you happy too, other people can connect with that, and they feel, oh, that makes me happy as well. And it's such a good question, because sometimes there's, common things that make people happy, but also there's some really, really deep answers to what makes somebody really happy. So thank you both for sharing that. I would like to next ask you about your project. So this is why we're here. Fast Feed is the title of your independent film, correct? Independent film.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the inspiration behind it and what it is?
Yeah. So I'll start. So like the inspiration. So we've got, just to make it clear, we've got a short independent film that we did, that we've already done. And then we're also working on a feature film at the moment, which is separate to the short. They have they're kind of connected, but they're separate projects. And the short that we did, and the inspiration for the short, kind of came from the way that technology is moving forward at a rate of knots. And how it first came from, what will maybe my daughter, when she's 5 now, but what will it be like when she's 13, 14, and where will technology be there, and will I be out of touch with it? How will I deal with it? How will parents deal with it? It's already a thing happening now, but this education within parents or within society of how to catch up with how fast technology is moving, to help with mental health. So that's kind of how it started initially. But then me and Adey got in the studio and we played around with different things, and we're both into politics and social issues. So then it was kind of connecting those together, and really kind of going, playing around with different ideas around also our experience of how what kind of work we do, have done before, using voice or using a movement, and kind of putting those together. And that's how it kind of came together. And we kind of played around in the studio, got a kind of few ideas. And then we had a few clips that we had from that. Yeah, that's kind of the start of it. Adey, do you want to carry on from there?
No. So we kind of started with this project about, we definitely kind of went into this more political side, and then looking at kind of the effects of kind of how kind of divided people's opinions are. There's no kind of, it feels like quite often there's no space for gray anymore. Either it's this or it's this. So we were kind of really looking at that, about how you can jump from Donald Trump, say, and then suddenly you're reading an article about Greta Thunberg, and how the algorithms kind of send you from one to the other, because maybe one person said something about another, and 1 minute you're kind of aggressively hating one person you can kind of guess which one I might be talking about out of those two, and then suddenly you're watching this 15-year-old Swedish woman saying these incredible things that are just so inspiring, and you're just like, wow, how can I have gone through that in the space of 1.5 minutes, and and what is that doing to me, like? And then suddenly YouTube is sending you back the other way, because maybe somebody else is from the right or something has said something about her, and then so it's kind of like we were kind of interested in this kind of journey that the digital world takes you on. And we were like, how do we kind of show that visually, that how that could affect somebody? So we put together this concept, very short concept. I think it was like 4 scenes, if I remember, and it kind of 4 or 5 scenes. And then this was at the start of last year. I think we did that. We finished that at the first week of February, and then the lockdown happened, and then kind of the events of the year and the Black Lives Matter erupted, and we looked back at this 4-minute concept that we weren't going to come back to until, I think we'd originally planned like December or something, and we felt so charged by what was happening, and I kind of felt really strongly that we should release this material that we'd made, and we had no intention because it spoke so directly and it was suddenly so current. And then, it's almost like we almost called each other almost like the same time or something. And both of us had exactly the same idea to release this film in response to what had happened to George Floyd and many other people in the States. And this, I'm sure I have a lot more to say, especially on like the effects it was having on us around this time. But it really kind of motivated us of like, we knew we wanted to make a test film that would be like almost like a scene or a part of the feature that we're making, but it also gave us the opportunity to like, well, instead of it just being a test shoot, why don't we make a short film that actually really directly addresses the politics of the now and the effects it's having on people and people's mental health. So we made a 15-minute short that directly addresses that, and I think I can imagine you could cut in with some things around that.
Yeah, just going back to what Adey was saying about this polarization between like this kind of, we were going for this kind of, how on social media now, how we have to make up our mind up very quickly of what side we stand on, because there's so much information coming through and new stories coming through, new news are coming through daily. And it's almost like, right, this person said this, where do I stand on it? I need to make a decision quickly. And it's becoming more and more polarized on your decisions. And so it's this conflict that we're kind of in, and which side are you on? So we really want to have this feel of the short being really contrast. So like we put me in a completely black space, and maybe there was one bit where I then had like a white shirt and a white cup, and like the light was really harsh white light, and just trying to kind of get this real to represent that polarization with what we're trying to say. So that was kind of the stylistic quality to it. And as we went back and but yeah, so that was kind of the kind of stylistic quality of that. Going back to when we wanted to release it, when after George Floyd was murdered, and the impact that had, I think for a lot of people of color and black people all over the world, it was really hard to see, because obviously we've seen so much horrific deaths by the police towards black people, especially in the States, also here. And it's one of those things that, and also you have, we're dealing with institutional racism on a daily basis. I've dealt with racism when I was a kid for, a lot, all my life. And so when we saw this, it was like everyone was inside, everyone was very, very emotional, because they were dealing with a lot in terms of the coronavirus. So everyone was quite open in terms of being quite vulnerable. And so everyone saw this at the same time. So the impact to people of color was very much, black people, was that it was like opening all these wounds. So you were already kind of open, and it was reopening wounds from your past. So it wasn't just, oh my God, this is horrific. And I know for a lot of white people watch it, it was horrific to watch. What it was doing was, it was done in the most horrific way, but it was like all the stuff that happened before that just went boom, and it all just came together. And it was just like the impact of it was, yeah, a lot. And then I was getting contact from a lot of my white liberal friends who were then constantly going, oh, I feel like it's like they've had an awakening all of a sudden. And I had to deal with that. And I know I've talked to a lot of black people who've had the same, and it became our problem. And this is a conversation we're always having, going, it's not our problem. We deal with this every day. It's your problem to deal with. We have to see someone of color getting killed, and now we have to go, oh, right, now we'll educate you. And it's, like I remember 4 years ago, I was telling people about a documentary, 13th, on Netflix. 4 or 5 years ago, I was talking about it, and people are like, yeah. And he just goes, because I explain what it's about, and it's like, oh, it sounds really interesting. And they seem interested, but because it's not directly to them, they don't watch it. Then everyone, when this happened, everyone was like, what book should I read? What Netflix should I watch? What, blah, blah. And it was just like, it was overwhelming. And I was like, I feel like I needed to do something that was a positive thing in that moment, but I didn't know what to do. And I was like, I want to make some art, because that's the way I express myself. Mm-hmm. And then it was in that moment where I was like, oh my God, we made this clip. Perfect. Maybe if we release that, it'll be some kind of healing in this moment. And so then when Adey said it did the same, I was just thinking the same. Let's release it and see what happens. And actually the impact of it was the best thing we did, because not just because it impacted lots of people. It kind of went viral. It really, especially in the industry, in the acting industry, but it also created a positivity coming back as well. So it was almost like a self-healing thing of this, putting something out that we felt like was relating to it, but also it had like a positive effect. So yeah, it was something that also for me gave me that energy that I had, whatever that energy was, whether it was sadness, anger, frustration, I could put it into the work. And then it was the work that was doing the talking, if that makes sense, rather than me personally going, I feel angry about this, I feel angry about this. It was a release through the work, which I think is just, it taught me something about why I love doing art, why I love doing, express myself through this way, because it's so impactful. People were literally from LA to London to all around the world, where people were like saying how much this 1 minute clip had an impact on them. And that gave us the fire to just go, right, let's move on, let's do this. This is it almost felt like a bigger thing than the project itself that what it originally was. It became bigger than that. And it was like, right, I felt like I had more of a duty to kind of, and I wanted to kind of keep pushing forward to then doing the short, and then us then going, right, this still needs to go forward and going into the feature. So that's what's kind of fueling the whole project now. Whereas before it was more of a friendship. Me and Adey wanted to work together for years, want to make some work, come together, know we could make something quite interesting. And then as it's gone on, it's become something bigger than that. Yeah.
I wanted to share there's a link to your site where you can find out information about the film and the clip as well. So I'm just putting it in the chat now. And thank you so much for that background on it. And it's such an exciting journey for you guys as well, that just from this one small clip that you put out is turning into something so much bigger and making a huge impact. And I know that some of our previous conversations, you brought up that you're trying to give viewers an opportunity to really understand empathy with this film as well. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I think when we talked about that, about the trying to explore that, how do you empathize with the character? And we all know the traditional ways that films do that with, maybe you follow this lead character, you follow the events, and hopefully at some point you'll empathize, and then you'll have a kind of emotional attachment or feeling to whatever's being portrayed on the screen. But we from the beginning of the project, actually, we were really looking at how can we make something more immersive, which also linked in with the idea of kind of the digital world, how it's becoming more immersive and more immediate, and how do we make a film in a traditional way that you sit there maybe in the cinema and watch it, but it feels more immersive, and that maybe that will help empathize with the character, the lead, or the characters in the film more. So we were really looking at camera movements and how, because kind of like the freedom of camera, and maybe like my photographic background, the geekery in that of like, because cameras are kind of like, you can do so much more than you've ever been able to do. And maybe the limitless possibilities is kind of, doesn't help sometimes. But with this, we were seeing like, what if the camera were like a character itself? What if you were kind of like constantly the voyeur of our lead character? So you it's like you're always the fly on the wall in the film, and if there's kind of interaction also with the lead to you, the viewer, almost, and it's directly coming at you. And we do this in the short, that it's always, the eye contact is always with the viewer, but also the way that the camera moves, we were like, this is also can actually convey quite a lot of how you kind of connect with that person. And we did a lot of kind of testing of like, if it were static, what does that say? And if the person's dancing in it, for instance, what happens if the camera almost feels like it's part of that scene, part of, like, it could be you there with it. It's almost like I suppose like virtual reality without having to put the VR on. And it's maybe never quite what virtual reality is, but I do think there's a way of kind of connecting the audience stronger through because we kind of have this screen or to separate us, but there's a way of kind of the immersion that could help empathize more with what's being portrayed, and also obviously the themes of what we're talking about. We hope that people do connect and empathize with those. But yeah, Ira, did you have anything to add on the empathy part?
Yeah, I guess there's definitely a thing where it is like Graham was saying about having the empathy with the lead character, and I think we're trying to do something slightly different in the respect that this is kind of an everyman person per se, like that is not I think what I find hard with a lot of films is that if it's a black lead, it's either something that is steeped in a past reality, so it's something that's actually happened a lot of the time. Things are changing now, or it's purely about race. It's either about someone who's real or it's about race, and that's the main focus of it. Whereas what we're trying to do is have this kind of main character who gets obsessed with social media that happens to be someone of color, and within the story, as it goes along, you start to see the impacts of the algorithms that are targeted at him because he's someone of color, and how also in the real world he is also getting institutional racism that is coming through on his everyday life, and this does also have an impact. But we want to really show the subtleties within, especially how it is in Britain with the institutional racism, where it's very easy to dismiss. Well, and like the government's just dismissed it now with the bill, the letter they brought out. So it's a prime example of that, and we want to show the intricacies of how it happens. But first and foremost, we want to show that the lead character is a three-dimensional human being first, and then anything else after that is something that they are experiencing, and maybe because of their color, there are those things that are coming in. So we want to pull the viewer in to really connect with that person, not see them just as a black person. And I feel like sometimes that happens with, films that are purely about race. You can watch it as someone who's not a black person, and you see them as a black person because it's straight about race, if that makes sense. Whereas we want to kind of get them to see this person as a three-dimensional character, and it could be a white person playing it. But where would the story go if it was? But it could be, because everyone's addicted about, loads of people can be addicted and dealing with mental health issues. So yeah, that's kind of the idea. That's the hope, and the kind of getting, different types of people to connect with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's really interesting that you're like Adey, you were saying how you're filming it and putting it in that lens of that character, so that you really are almost like you're experiencing it from themselves. As another question for you on, we just touched on that mental health piece and how the digital world is affecting mental health, especially right now when we're all stuck behind computer screens. As we get out of lockdown and we start easing back into normal life, do you think that there's a way to find a balance between, continuing to use the digital world and having these virtual events and using social media, and also taking a step back for your mental health?
Yeah,
I think there's difficult. Yeah, sorry, you go.
Sorry, no. I think that it's one of those things that it's everyone's gonna have their own thing. It's basically like a diet. I think like everyone has different diet requirements, and they want to live their life in a certain way. So it's all very personal in terms of how much you use, how much you don't, and people will use less and people will use more, for instance. So I think personally, I want to get to a point where it can be something that is more of a, I actually did this with food as well, because I think, I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm an 80s child and we were brought up on sugar. And so that's been a thing that I've as time's gone on, and because I was a dancer, I could eat as much sugar as I wanted when I was younger. And so I realized that actually how unhealthy that was, and how to, when I want to kind of pull back on it and make a conscious choice to go, I want to have it now, and it's my choice, rather than that part of the brain that gets addicted to it, that's going, the body, I can feel the body going, I want sugar, I want sugar. So I had to cut that out, so I didn't have that feeling anymore. So it was a choice. And I think that's personally where I want to get with social media. I want to get to a point where each time that I go onto it, or I have a time with it, I go, right, this is the choice that I want to do. Not, oh why am I looking at my phone before I've even known my body's already done it, because it's autopilot, because I've seen someone take a phone out of their pocket and then I've just done it. It's that kind of wiring is really scary, and I'm starting to be aware of it now. But also having time frames where you can go, right, definitely put my phone away, like, you know, have a rule when we're eating dinner at table, phones away, don't look at your phone, to get into a habit of when you have these designated times when you don't have your phone. And that's purely about phone, not anything else. But that's the only way. Obviously we're going to live with it, and also obviously with lockdown, it's being ramped up like 100%. So all these new tech, Zoom for instance, you know, all the new tech stuff that we wouldn't even potentially know about, was only used, you know, for certain conferences or certain auditions or whatever it was for, you know, a specific time, is now an everyday occurrence, and it's in everyone's home, and that's going to have an impact on society. And lots of this stuff, it's a bit like throwing loads of stuff at the wall, something will stick. And I think lots of this stuff will stick, because you realize, oh, I don't need to leave my house, I save time, I might save some money. But what we're losing within that is the reality, the true reality. What is, because we're talking now, and it's filtering through so much stuff before it gets to you guys. And so what is it going through? And you don't have that instant three-dimensional connection. Because also you can be in a room with someone and they might not be talking, but your body language, you're getting so much from them. You know the atmosphere of the room when you walk into a room.
Yeah.
It's very hard to pick that up when you're on Zoom. It's almost impossible to pick up what is the energy of what's going on in the room. And so that's my worry about moving forward, of losing those things, that they just start to teeter off a little bit. But you know, yeah.
That's
We'll
a lot of organizations too right now are going more towards that hybrid model of working part-time home and then part-time in the office. Like myself, I'm in an office today, but I do prefer staying at home. But you're right, like you do lose the opportunity for spontaneity when you go out into the world, and like even I'm having trouble looking at people in the eye when I'm talking to them, because I'm just not used to seeing people face to face anymore, you know. But
that's also, yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just gonna say, it's just interesting to see how the world will change once we're going back into whatever the new normal is.
I also think that the mental health issue, coming back to that, and also in linking to the film, of this thing of the younger generation of any way of being online was a big thing, but now it's coming, and I can feel it. You feel it when you find it harder to talk in real situations, or you know, and it will come back, but how will that have a knock-on effect with other generations and actually their mental health within that, and the anxiety that comes from going to, I did like a live event for this film that's coming out, and I had to play like a Navy SEAL, and like it's American Navy SEAL, and there's all these influencers, and we basically had to put them through their paces. Really fun, but it was really nerve-wracking doing, because I haven't done theatre for a year. And so because I'm doing so much stuff on camera now, it's like you can finish it and cut, and be like, oh, okay, right, well, maybe I messed up, let's do it again. Where it's like that thing of that, again, it's just all having that one-to-one connection can be really scary, and it's becoming more and more of a bigger deal.
Adey, did you have something to say? Or?
Yeah, lots on this topic. Maybe we don't have enough time, but I don't know, maybe quickly, like I view there's many good things with technology, and I think that's there's so many things that are positive that have come out of things that we can use. But I do see social media, the way it is at the moment, it's kind of, in some respects, is like a necessary evil for certain things. Like as a photographer, it's like Instagram, for instance, has been an amazing platform for myself to reach out and connect with people that maybe understand the type of work that I'm trying to do. But the knock-on effect of that is that you've reached a lot of people, and that people, and I do have quite a large following on Instagram for this, but the problem with that is that there is kind of like an anxiety built up around using these platforms that is just not healthy. And it's this constant dilemma of like, well, you know, like it's helped me get to reach, and like there's so many things that have come out of it in the real world that probably couldn't have happened in the same time frame without it. But I feel that's just for myself, and I know that I've had lots of problems with kind of anxiety and depression that I know is related to social media use, and I see it now, especially having gone through this period of lockdowns and the pandemic. I see people around me that the kind of phone use is like never before, and I see that people are going to come out of this with new levels of addiction. And like what Ira said, everybody does everything now. You order everything online. You know, why go and meet somebody when it can, you know, like the material, the product can just come to you. But yeah, I think it could be, this could be a pivotal point of a new level of mental health issues that people are unaware of at present. It may be, and which really directly talks about the feature film that we're trying to make is, maybe that you don't understand the kind of complexity of what your brain is dealing with in the moment until it's too late, and it can be too late quite quickly, actually. So yeah, I think I have no idea how it's going to be, but I could imagine that there will be quite serious negative effects that people have maybe gone through.
Also, I would say less text messaging, more calling. That's my big thing. Like anyone who's younger than me, they just don't want to pick up the phone. They will not pick up their phone. They won't even leave me. I'm doing voice messages all left, right, and center. I think this thing of hearing someone's voice and having an actual connection on the phone, people are getting anxiety over talking on the phone. Like, this is, I do know a couple people
who do have anxiety about speaking on the phone, and it's crazy to think that that's the point that we've gotten to.
Yeah, because actually that is going to be helping people's mental health so much when you're actually talking to someone and actually going, oh, this is how I'm actually feeling, which you don't really get over a text message. You don't get the depth, you don't get the the kind of nuance, and it kind of moving on to deeper things and actually getting to talk about things, what you really need to get off your chest. You don't do it on a text message. yeah, that's a huge thing that I've noticed in recent years.
And my new thing, I talked about this the other day, is I actually started, finally, after many people telling me for years, I started meditating.
Yeah,
and
that's great.
Taking this time, I just do it twice a day, only 20 minutes each time. And because you know, I switch off my phone, there's nobody around, and actually just spending those 20 minutes with yourself and only yourself. And you're talking about happiness as well. I've come out of it. Sometimes I'm, biking just after I've meditated, and I've got this big smile on my face, and I don't know why I'm smiling, but I'm smiling. But I know it's because, I took time for myself for once, and I hadn't been doing that for a long time, and I think that's also a problem with phones. You never get that alone time. There's always a buzz in your leg, or a message, or a something, or like Ira said, that this automatic response of, like, you just pick up the phone because you saw somebody in the distance do it as well. So
and when you're on your phone,
I think
you're looking at other people's lives. It's not your own time for yourself. It's you're concerned about somebody else or something else.
But you talked about balance, and I think the only way to find balance is to cut down usage and try to spend more time looking after yourself with things like meditation, or meeting up with a friend and saying hello in person if it's possible with the pandemic. But
definitely. Well, I am conscious of time, so I'd like to just wrap up with how can we follow your journey? I know I shared the link in the chat. How else can we follow you?
Social media.
After we just had this long discussion, I mean, are you planning on launching the new film soon? How's that going?
Our time frame at the moment is we are hoping to shoot towards the end of next year.
Okay.
And probably a good way to follow us, but we are actually, in a healthy way, really bad with the social media, our accounts, that we've actually just been really focusing on working on the film instead of working on telling people about the film. So if you want to follow us, or just you can just send us an email as well, if you'd like to know more. And we're still we're hoping, we know we've got a long journey ahead of us, and we're at the foot of the mountain, in a sense that it's not an easy thing to make a feature film, and kind of, I suppose, in some ways the world's against us being able to do it. But I think Ira and I are pretty determined and focused and feel good about working together on it. And I think it's good, it's good for our mental health as well, working on this film. We feel good. It's like, it's sometimes a struggle, but a lot of the time it's great.
All right. Thank you, Adey. And thank you, Ira.
Thank you.
I will share around my newsletter some details of where to find the Indiegogo link. And it was just really great to have you guys on the show today. And I really appreciate your time. So thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
All right. Have a good weekend, everybody. Bye.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.